Well, most of St. Louis has been following the news. In fact, it was in the Post-Dispatch this morning that the meeting that was supposed to happen on Monday last night, because this is Tuesday as we say this, for the Bridgeton Landfill Coldwater Creek nuclear waste meeting that they have monthly, correct?
Yes, we've been hearing so much about this. It was called off.
Now, Alison, Carrick, and C.D. Stelzer joins us today. They directed a film called The First Secret City. I used to swim in Coldwater Creek as a kid.
Really?
Yes.
So this is this contamination has come out.
Let's just lay the backstory on it.
Yeah, let's lay the groundwork for somebody who may not be up on what's going on.
Well, the basic story, in a nutshell, is that in 1942, during the Manhattan Project, which was then a secret project, Mallinckrodt Chemicals was contracted to do work with the federal government to find uranium, and that work was done here in St. Louis. And then, of course, after 1945, people knew what had happened. But then they continued that work after that through government military contracts, and that waste was
dumped,
improperly stored or dumped. Well, it's kind of funny because people view it as a dump, but in the end, what we found out in investigating this is that the waste was very valuable, and so they were not allowed to dump it or not allowed to get rid of it because it was supposed to go back to the Belgian company that had originally sold it to them because they thought they could make more money off of it. So they were storing it out there.
Keeping it over there.
They were storing it out at the airport unprotected in any type of casing or shell because they were going to make more money off of it. And they eventually did sell it.
And what it was like a pile of black rock, is that correct?
Well, one of our sources in the film describe it as piles of black sand.
Okay.
And for those folks that might be younger, the Manhattan Project was the secret project to build the first atomic bombs.
And how did St. Louis wasn't the only? We weren't the only player in that, right? It was
not at all. But we were the first player, and that's why we call the film "The First Secret City," because in order to do the first nuclear chain reaction, which occurred at the University of Chicago in late 1942, they had to first refine the uranium here. And it came from, as Alison mentioned, it came from the Belgian Congo. This uranium.
I was going to say, where do you get uranium? I mean, is it on Amazon?
In the Amazon.
It's mined here in the western United States, but the uranium that was used here was from the Belgian Congo, and it was 60 to 65% pure. American or North American uranium is approximately 1 to 2% pure. So that's the difference between
we wanted the good stuff.
This was the good stuff. Now
the bad stuff, depending on how you look at it.
Mallinckrodt, this happened in downtown St. Louis.
They always call it downtown, but it's actually a little bit north of downtown. It's on North Broadway, up near Produce Road.
That's where they were producing all of this nuclear waste, which ended up out in Bridgeton and near the airport. How many tons of waste went out there, and over what period of time?
That's a good question. It's I'm not sure.
Well, from 1942 to about 1956, it was
15 years.
But then after that, they went out to Wellness Spring and were producing waste out there too.
So they were taking truckloads. According to your film, every day, like around the clock, they were taking truckloads of this waste and just piling it up out there.
Correct.
It's not something that was being hidden. It was just all out in the open.
That's true.
And was that neglect or just that they just didn't, one arm wasn't thinking of the other arm and there's like, hey, go do your job?
Or if we just put up a fence, everything will be okay.
I don't know what the logic was to do it, obviously, because they did have it right near the headwaters of Coldwater Creek. And so you have to say, I don't know why they did that.
So originally, the plant is right adjacent. It's right next to McKinley Bridge, and it's adjacent to the Mississippi River. And for the first few years, they were just storing it on site, but they ran out of space. And there's some speculation, and it's not unfounded, that they dumped it in the Mississippi River as well.
What's very impactful about The First Secret City, your film, is that you tell it from the point of view of someone who grew up in the area and was very much affected, physically, medically affected by living there.
Many people, actually.
Yeah.
We interviewed
About 30 people. Only about 20 of them ended up in the film, which is still a large amount.
Yeah. Yeah,
but I mean, everything from cancer to the man who lost all his teeth and various ailments that you've been able
which
to
is
link.
what first drew their attention to it. They realized that it appeared to them as if there were a higher rate of deaths and child deaths in that area than there were in the inner city, right?
Right. And there was a group of women that one of whom was interviewed on our film. They started the Coldwater Creek Just the Facts Facebook page, and they did an informal health study, and that's kind of how this came to public attention again.
Did the Bridgeton landfill also help bring it back to our attention with that fire burning underground there and slowly approaching that? Yeah. Is that what brought it to your attention?
Not actually. Actually, I had been working on this for a couple of years before the fire became known about. And my first entry in this was way back in 1991 when I covered the Coldwater, the Weldon Spring cleanup for the Riverfront Times. I used to be a reporter for the Riverfront Times.
Wow.
So here's the big question. I mean, this is what I heard this morning. You read the paper. I heard something on the radio that they came back. I don't know who they are, but whoever
EPA.
your opposition is.
I believe the EPA, the experts.
Is that who it is? And with some, denial statement. And is that the problem here, that you're trying to do a good thing? Are we trying to point fingers at who's responsible and get them to do what? I mean, and they're like, no, we're not responsible. I mean, what's the...
Well, it's pretty complicated.
Yeah.
I'll try and say it. The meeting that happened last night was a CAG meeting, which is called a Community Advisory Group meeting.
Which happens monthly.
I think it's bi-monthly now.
Okay, all right.
So there's various different groups meeting. There's a citizens group, the Westlake Landfill Moms, just Moms, STL. They're involved. Now, the CAG actually works with the EPA. So right now that site is under the jurisdiction of the EPA, but the citizens would like it moved to the Army Corps of Engineers because they're the ones that have been cleaning up all of the other sites in St. Louis. So the weird thing about the landfill is in about 1991, it was made a Superfund site, and the theory is that the Department of Energy, who is a responsible party for all this stuff in all these sites, didn't want to deal with it. And so they kind of shuffled it off and said, okay, we'll just give it to the EPA, who then they've studied it, but they haven't done anything.
Yeah,
25 years.
The line that in your film that stands out to me is when the guy from the EPA said repeatedly, we see no evidence of any contamination outside of this immediate area.
Right.
And then one guy stood up and said, if I close my eyes, I see no evidence of you being in this room.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so they're just turning their eyes away. They're not even looking at what's going on.
Right.
They've never done off-site testing.
Okay.
Which is what people have been demanding. And then actually other people now are coming in, like the Department of Natural Resources, excuse me, has come in and done off-site testing and found contamination.
So if you grew up in St. Louis, in that area, actually just about any area in St. Louis, you must see this film because you will see it close up. Having grown up in the area, you'll recognize the names of the towns. You'll recognize the streets. When you hear the word Coldwater Creek, as a kid, everyone knew Coldwater Creek. I mean, we used to go play in the creek and catch crawdads in the creek. Mm-hmm. And then now, as we're older, we hear...
Those weren't crawdads. Those were little amoebas, but they look like crawdads.
Exactly, yeah.
And they're actually, as recently as last fall, they've found new sites along Coldwater Creek that are contaminated and are being cleaned up now as we speak.
The film is called The First Secret City. Where can one see this film?
Well, right now we're trying to organize another screening in North County, and we're also working to... We're looking at online distribution or trying to work that out.
Yeah, because it must be seen.
We are still submitting to film festivals.
Good. St. Louis International Film Festival.
We played there. We also played at the Big Muddy Film Festival. So we're still doing that. And I think it's just it's a marathon, let's put it that way, to get it out there. So.
Well, Godspeed to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us on.
CD, and thank you, Alison.
Thank
you both.
And thanks to Nighthawk Security making our segment possible today through their generosity. They're locally owned and locally monitored here in St. Louis since 1974. They will install, service, maintain, and monitor your security system or take over an existing system. Call 846-4600 and ask for Joe.